The King has said the partnership between the UK and the US is more important today than it has ever been. Tonight, the King addressed a joint session of the US Congress, the upper and lower houses of Parliament, only the second British monarch ever to do so. His speech was warmly received by lawmakers and won multiple standing ovations. The second day of the state visit by the King and Queen had begun with a ceremonial military welcome at the White House, including a flypast and a speech from President Trump in which he said Americans have no closer friends than the British. The trip comes against a backdrop of tension between the two countries, particularly in relation to the war in Iran. All the day's events now from our senior royal correspondent Daniela Relph in Washington.
Mr. Speaker, Their Majesties King Charles III and Queen Camilla.
35 years ago, his mother was here, speaking of the power of friendship. Today, her son returned as monarch to share the same message. The audience from across the political divide heard one of the most powerful speeches delivered by the King during his reign. At times, it had punch. There were direct political references, amidst lighter touches and historical reminders. After events at the weekend in Washington, he began with words of comfort and solidarity.
Let me say with unshakable resolve, such acts of violence will never succeed. Whatever our differences, whatever disagreements we may have, we stand united in our commitment to uphold democracy.
As often with the King, history played strongly. The UK and US didn't always get on, he said, but we managed to find common ground.
Drawing on these values and traditions, time and again, our two countries have always found ways to come together. And by Jove, Mr. Speaker, when we have found that way to agree, what great change is brought about, not just for the benefit of our peoples, but of all peoples. This, I believe, is the special ingredient in our relationship. As President Trump himself observed during his state visit to Britain last autumn, the bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It is irreplaceable and unbreakable.
The standing ovations came thick and fast. When the King touched on politics, he was careful. But there was a reminder of the power of NATO in response to the attacks of September the 11th.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people.
And it was a pointed end as he looked at the future of the UK-US partnership.
America's words carry weight and meaning, as they have since independence. The actions of this great nation matter even more. President Lincoln understood this so well with his reflection in the magisterial Gettysburg Address, that the world may little note what we say, but will never forget what we do. And so to the United States of America, on your 250th birthday, let our two countries rededicate ourselves to each other in the selfless service of our peoples and of all the peoples of the world. God bless the United States, and God bless the United Kingdom.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump.
Earlier, there was pomp and pageantry on the south lawn of the White House. The official ceremonial welcome, the highest diplomatic honour America can offer a visiting head of state. In a typically freewheeling speech, President Trump spoke warmly of Britain.
Thank you very much, everybody. What a beautiful British day this is. Americans have had no closer friends than the British. We share that same root. We speak the same language. We hold the same values.
And there was a slightly awkward family recollection.
Anytime the Queen was involved in a ceremony or anything, my mother would be glued to the television and she'd say, "Look, Donald, look how beautiful that is." She really did love the family, but I also remember her saying very clearly, "Charles, look, young Charles, he's so cute." My mother. My mother had a crush on Charles. Can you believe it? Amazing how, I wonder what she's thinking right now. But
this state visit has been marked by the personal chemistry. Two very different men, a king and a president, finding ways to reset a strained alliance.
Well, in a moment, we'll hear from our North America editor, Sarah Smith. First, though, let's get a little more from Daniela, because in that speech we've heard in the last couple of hours, Daniela, the king had a fine line to tread, but it seems to have gone down very well.
Yes, it has. Royal speeches always tend to require a little bit of reading between the lines, but the King's words to Congress were as clear as we've ever heard him. References to NATO, to Ukraine, to the power of global alliances. And this evening we have had a statement from a Buckingham Palace spokesperson saying the King was deeply honoured to have been invited to be the first British King to give such an address, and was greatly touched by the warmth and generosity of the response he received. The palace is pleased with its work here so far and how President Trump is responding. Tonight there will be two more speeches at a lavish state dinner here in Washington, one from the President and one again from the King. We're told the themes from the King will be similar, but the mood will be lighter.
All right, thanks, Daniela. And Sarah, away from all the formalities that we've been seeing today, there are other comments which have come to light today.
Yeah, the British ambassador to Washington, some Christian Turner, has been quoted in the Financial Times, some remarks that were recorded when he was speaking to some British students here in Washington back in February. And they are a bit embarrassing, especially given that it's his job to make sure everything runs smoothly. And now it's his own remarks that are making headlines and threatening to derail this occasion. He was overheard saying that if any country has a special relationship with America, it's not Britain, but probably Israel. Now, that's awkward, isn't it, when the King is here to try and bolster the alliance between the US and the UK. And he also made reference to the spectre of Jeffrey Epstein, something that both Buckingham Palace and the White House would much rather not talk about, especially as the King and Queen were under heavy pressure to meet some of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, some of whom have come here to Washington to make that point. Now, they're not going to do that, and we're told that they've had legal advice that they shouldn't say anything directly about Jeffrey Epstein. But there was a reference in his speech from King Charles there where he talked about the ills, victims of the ills that tragically exist in both our countries. And we understand that that was a reference to Jeffrey Epstein's crime and the King acknowledging that that had happened.